Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ember and Rails full stack development live stream. I'm Josh Justice, aka Coding It Wrong. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad to be back in the code and diving into some new stuff. But first, a couple announcements. Very excited that EmberConf is happening this Monday as of when this is being recorded. I'm excited to hear all the great talks and hear the new stuff that's coming. Been tracking with Octane some, but I'm excited to see the advances that are happening in Ember. And we've been using some of them already in the live stream that are available now, but I'm sure some of the more complex things around classes and component styles that I haven't been able to quite wrap my head around yet, I think those will become clearer very soon. So I'm very excited to hear about that. Wanted to give a plug again to my friends at Embercasts. If you want to learn even more about Rails and Ember, or Ember with other backends, Embercast is the place to go. They have a special deal right now while EmberConf is coming up for just $99. That's 80% off their courses. And I've been through the Rails and Ember course and it's great. So I highly recommend it. Check it out while you got this deal. And that'll just help you go even deeper. Sweet. Let's go into things. I ran into something random that I thought would be nice to share as we were getting into the app. I had actually dropped my database locally and recreated it, and I lost my test data that I was using last time. So I wanted to show you in Rails how you can handle that. So in Rails, this is, again, this is so different than most other frameworks. We'll handle the database for you. So you can do Rails DB drop. If you want to delete your development database, it won't do that in production. It'll prevent you, I'm pretty sure. Don't try it on your production server, but check and see. But this will let you drop your local development database, which makes it easy to recreate it so you can get a fresh start. And it also helps you make sure that the migration scripts you have will correctly set up the database. So we can see here that it's dropped the database ideas development and ideas test. And so we can just do db create to create them again. This is one of the reasons why I'm barely ever in the database client when I'm using Rails, is because Rails handles all that for me, connects to local Postgres on the regular ports and things like that. So now the databases are created and we can do db migrate to reapply all the tables and stuff like that. There's another command you can use as well, but I'm choosing db migrate here for a specific reason. So now all the tables are here. So now if I use Postman to access it, I've set up some of the endpoints here so we can easily access them in Postman. I try to access the ideas endpoint. Oh, and the server's not running. So let's just do Rails S for Rails server to get that up. And now that it's running, when I send this, I get no ideas back. I am out of ideas. And this is because when our database was deleted, and so there's no records in there. Rails created the database tables for us, but it didn't create any records. So there is a feature in Rails that will create records for you. It's called seeds. So if you go into your Rails project under db seeds, here's a file. If you use my Rails template, you'll get a user being created for you from scratch. But you can add other records as well. And this is just regular Ruby code, where just like in Rails application code or in the console, you can access your models and create records. So I've gone in and loaded in the data that we entered by hand last time, so it's easy to get back with Sandy Metz with 1 quote and Martin Fowler with 2 quotes. And we can just run this. It's okay if the app is running. We can just run Rails db seed, and it's going to insert these records for us. Now notice I'm not doing any deletion out of existing records. So if you want the seeds file to be able to, kind of clear out and restart your database, you might have to kind of code in dropping things in there. But so now that that's run, there's been no feedback in the console, and now when I run send, I get several ideas back. I can get several authors back, and the data is all loaded. So if I need to get another developer up to speed or just need to restart my database from scratch, the seeds file will help me to do that. So that's all good, and I think that's probably all we're going to be doing in Rails itself this time, because we're going to be on the front end. We set up these different data models for our application to track them, and we're going to be experimenting with the UI to figure out how we can make it look good. Let me open up the design file I did last time, just to sort of the diagram. Where are you at? Diagram. There we go. So the idea, what is the application we're building? It's an ideas app tracking ideas that come out of different books and other sources. So we have an author that has multiple sources. It could be books, blog posts, conference talks, many different things. And this arrow means a one-to-many relationship. So an author has multiple sources. Each source has 1 book. So you can get to each source has 1 author. So you can get to the 1 author from the source. That's why the arrow goes that way. A source can have multiple quotes in it, And then also an idea is the kind of core thing we're all about. What is the idea about programming or life or whatever? And what are the different quotes that support that idea or that idea comes out of? So idea, quote, source, and author are our 4 models. And we've set them up in Rails in the backend. We've set them up in our JSON API. That's what I was accessing here through Postman client. So now we need to update our Ember application to get access to these models. So let's dive in and do it. All right, we've got our Ember app right here. Let's set up the models first. You can see from before that we just had one idea model that we had set up, because at first we just created a single model because I just wanted to quickly get Rails and Ember up and running to show you what it's like. Let me switch over to ideas Ember to be in the right directory in the data model branch here. So at first, the idea model had the summary and the quote both of them on the same model, but we moved the quote out into its own model now. So we can remove this attribute, and let's kind of create models for these. We can do Ember G model, author. And I don't believe Ember's generator, I don't think it lets you specify the fields when you're generating it. It's easy enough to add them in the generated file. So I'm just going to generate these one at a time, and then once they're ready to go, we will drop the attributes onto them. Got my virus scan is slowing things down a bit, so I'm going to tell it to press pause. All right, we've got an author. We've got an idea. We'll add a source, not sourcer, source. And then quote is the last thing. But let's go ahead. Yeah, there we go. That was a little faster. We've got our quote model. And we're going to copy our attribute decorator here, and an author has a name. See if I remember this correctly. A quote has the text of the quote. Oh, we're going to need to add those relationships in a second too. So let me do that. And a source has a attribute title. I forget if this has come up much in the stream so far. This is what's called a decorator. And this is a feature that's up and coming in ECMAScript. It's going to allow you to kind of add extra functionality to properties and methods within ES6 classes. And so we can use that. That's the approach we're using now. I think some progress is happening on Decorators as a part of EmberConf coming soon to make it more official. But for now, we're using the Ember Decorators add-on, and that's what allows us, as of today in Ember, to use ES6 classes, which feels just more standard and modern. All right, we've set up those. Let me just check my Ember reference over here, because I'm not an Ember every day. Yeah, belongs to and has many. So we have Ember has the same belongs to and has many relationships that are on the relational data in our backend. So that'll be easy to set up. I'm going to put these in alphabetical order so I can conceptualize it. So we're going to import the has many decorator as well. We're going to say an author has many sources. And we do pluralization like that, and Ember handles the fact that when you do has many sources, plural, source is the name of the model we're looking for. Let's just go over to source. We're going to do belongs to and has many. So a source belongs to an author, and a source has many quotes. Then a quote is just going to belongs to two things. Belongs to a source, and a quote belongs to an idea. And then finally, the idea has many quotes. Cool, so this should be hooking up our models, and we should be good to go. So now we need to load up our app. Let's see what we have, and let's start thinking about the UI and experimenting with what's going on. And I think I'm going to go ahead and commit these changes to the models, and if I've gotten something wrong, we'll just kind of commit incrementally to add some more. I am going to once again delete the tests that were generated here. I do love testing, but we don't have anything substantial yet on these models to test, and so I don't want to have test files for them. All right, so update to richer set of models is going to be in our commit. Now let's see what we got. We got our Rails app is running, our Ember app is running. Cool, so the home page of our app, our ideas page, and I'll zoom in a little bit, has these ideas showing up in the list. And then we can click on details to get to a details page, and we see the URL changes, and then we can go back to the main page. So I had talked about like some of the different ways that I wanted to view things. I don't necessarily want to just view a list of ideas, Maybe that was one of the options, but let me see what I said. I had said, as a couple different use cases, I wanted to be able to browse ideas and see the quotes they come from. And then also, as I'm reading a source, I want to be able to add quotes and link to new or existing ideas. Okay, so let's start with what we have here, the list of ideas, and we'll just go into this idea detail page, and we're going to add in the list of quotes underneath it, the related quotes that were related to these ideas. And hopefully we can actually show the names of the sources and authors that they come from as well. I'm going to take a quick foray into Ember paper to take a look at like what user interface wise would make sense to do here, because I'm not so familiar with how you say with material design. So here's a list, basic usage, 3-line items. Yeah, I think that's good. We're not going to have any icons next to it, so I hope that won't look too bad. But we're going to try that. I'm going to try that out. Okay, we've got paper list, paper subheader, and things like that. And remember, in the past, like this is, like most Ember add-ons and documentation, it's still showing curly brackets in as far as like how to use the components. But Ember is switching over to using angle brackets, as you may be familiar with from other frameworks. And so we're going to translate things over to use angle brackets as well. All right, so I'm going to just move this over here so we can switch back and forth easily. So let's take a look at our templates. We've got a template for, let's see here, ideas. Is that right? Controllers. Yeah, let's look at the router here. Route, we have ideas, path ideas, ID. So that's a single idea. That's a bit of a, yeah, there may be some things about how I've set that up that is maybe misleading. But that's okay. Cool. This is our ideas. So we have a card here for a single idea, a card that's shown at the top here. And so now we're just going to add the paper list here. Paper list. So that's the way within angle brackets we specify that. We've got a subheader. I do want the basic usage there. Is that not provided by the list, maybe? Maybe that's a card. Well, in any case, let's just start with this. Paper list. And then we can just loop through the list data. Okay, so what we're going to do here is, so here's the thing. We need to get, the model is an idea, and we need to get the list of quotes. I guess we can remove this quote since that's not going to be there anymore. So what we can do, have we loaded this already? Let's take a look and see what's happening in the app itself right now as far as what data has been downloaded. I think that'll be useful. So we go to this page, Ideas 1. Let's take a look at our network tab. And we see that a request is made to ideas/1 on our Rails server. And the response we get is this one record with the summary attribute and then links to the quotes for it. So if we switch over to our Ember, let's get this down here so we can see this. We'll dock to the bottom. And if we switch to our Ember inspector, we can take a look at the data tab and we can see that one idea record is loaded, but the other model types, no records are loaded. So we need to have the quotes loaded to list them out here. So we can actually do this at the same time that we're requesting. We can tell Ember the included data that we want to pull in. And JSON API is set up to load it for us automatically. So I don't quite remember the syntax. Let's take a look through here in the Ember Data documentation on the Ember guides. All right, so that's not there. Let's see here. Relationships. Included. Okay, so included data. The key include, and let's see an example. Yeah, so check it out. So this is saying return this store find record post with the ID, and then we say include comments and even nested comments dot author. So this is perfect. So this is what we want. So we can go into our, probably it's our route that we're loading this in. And this looks very similar. We're finding a record idea with the ID. I think I'm going to format it like this, although I do have Prettier installed, so I think Prettier will reformat it for me, so that's fine. So in here, we're going to say we want to include, oh, it's a string. Interesting. Yeah, and that's just part of the JSON API spec. So for the idea, we want quotes, and then we want quotes.author. no, quotes.source. And let's see it. Let's go for broke. Let's try to load quotes.source.author and see if it'll load all of that for us. Okay, that is loaded there. So now let's just try looping one level here. We'll go back into Ember Paper to see for a list. And then we're going to say each model dot quotes as quote. So this quote will be ready for us. This list of quotes will be ready for us by the time the page displays because it's loaded as part of the single request. And now we're going to loop through it. So we have a paper item. They've added a specific class on here. Let me keep that out, and we'll just see how it displays for now. MD. Oh, MD would be material design. I thought it might be medium, but I think it's material design instead. Okay, it looks like we have a div. Our stuff lives in MD list item text. So I'm going to just paste this div in here. And we've got an H3 and an H4. Okay, so the main thing to show up is going to be an H3. Maybe we'll decide that semantically this isn't the best, but I think it's okay for now. And then for here we have the quote dot text. Yeah, so the text of the quote itself should be that. So let's see if that loads. And if not, we will figure out something else. All right, check it out. So we loaded the page. The reason software design is necessary is because change is inevitable. And then here's the quote. Unfortunately, something will change. It always does. So that came in. We can see, oh, check it out. We've got an author, a quote, and a source all downloaded. Now let's take a look in the network to see what was pulled down. So we see in the request that was sent here, we still requested ideas/1, but in the query string parameters, Ember added this include equals and listed these series of trees of things to pull down. And so this is something that folks are very excited about GraphQL with. But in JSON API, there's also a way to eagerly fetch things so you're not making multiple requests or even n+1 requests or anything like that. We're pulling down all the quotes at once. And we'll be able to see that when we... Actually, if we go back and look at the other idea, we'll be able to see the multiple quotes that are pulled down. So we'll try that in just a minute. And so in the response, if you see it, we have the main data of the idea that we've pulled down is here. And then it says that data, it refers to the quotes here. So then parallel to this data key, there's an included key. This has other included records. So we have quote 1, quotes 1, sources 1, and authors 1 with all the attributes. So all of these records have been pulled down in one request. It's very nice. So let's add out in the other fields. This doesn't appear great, so I probably styled it somehow wrong. So we'll play with that a little bit more in a minute. So let's add these other things, though. We have H4 is what they had, and let's just see. There's a second line and a third line. I think I'm just going to put all this in the second line, and we'll say quote.author.name, comma, and then we're going to do italics, and this is going to be quote. Actually, sorry, this is source.author.name, quote.source.title. It's a book title. Well, not everything is a book, though. That's the thing. So that's interesting. I could add an attribute if I wanted to actually italicize books and not italicize things that shouldn't be italicized. But so let's just not italicize it for now. Let's just have it be a field. And in fact, maybe I will have it be on another row as a result of that, just to distinguish it. They had a P here. We'll just do that in case it affects the look and feel. We'll just stick with this again. Like I'm really just trying to get something that looks like a decent user interface to help me visualize what's going on. So now Ember automatically reloads the page, and now we see that we have all the related stuff. We have the quote, the author, and the title of the source. And this is all pulled down at once. We have a nice, rich relational data model, and we're able to access it all very easily. So that's very exciting. The design is less exciting, so let me copy over in more detail how Ember Paper styled it, and we'll see if we can improve that. Paper item had a class of MD3 line, so let's just take a look and see what that makes it look like. I've not messed with this before, so this is new to me. Well, that looks worse. So what has gone wrong? Oh. I think I know what it is. I think it's the @ sign. No, that's not right. All right, so if I just remove this, does it look better? Yeah, interesting. Okay, we have paper list. Did I manage to correctly get the paper list? Does it need to show up inside a, let me see if it needs to show up inside a panel or something. Paper content. So this is a paper card. So that's cool. Do we want a card? You know what we could do is actually have the idea in the title row of the card and have the other stuff underneath. Let's do that because that's going to look the most Ember paper possible. So this is the card title. In fact, that's card toolbar. Let's see here. Card title, card action. This is a card content is a separate thing. Card content. Yeah, so let's do card content. And now let's move this list up into there, and we'll see if being in a card styles the list differently. That might be the case. Right, we can now do, we have that title. We didn't make it a toolbar, so it's not colored yet, and that's fine. I think I like that just fine like this. Now let's do paper item class MD3Y. Oh, maybe I put it on the paper list instead of the paper item. I'm not sure though. Yeah, it doesn't look good. Not good. So I'm probably gonna have to play with this offline. Let me try, just in case it's something where I'm not familiar with the new syntax enough to do it. Let me just switch back to the curly syntax. And you can intermix it. No, that didn't do it either. So clearly that didn't fix it. There's something about paper styling here that I'm not familiar with. So we'll just leave that off now and we'll just get something displaying that's reasonable. It's not the most beautiful in the world, but it's all right. So let's go back to this other idea, this idea that has two quotes. So let's clear out the network tab. Let's go to this page. And we see we have two quotes here. I only see the author name after the second one, so that's kind of interesting. And I feel like I see a lot of requests here. That seems unintuitive, so let's take a look and see. Maybe, oh, you know what? I think I know why that is. That's interesting. That's an interesting bug about the way these things are loaded. So I'll look into that maybe in another session as far as like eagerly loading stuff. Let me make a note about next time. N+1 queries after coming from the list. Yeah, we'll look into that next time. But, so we do see here, we do have, so now loading this page is reloading this page. We are getting the author and the source for each one of them. So both of those are showing up in the list. So we've got like a one-to-many relationship here. And we can see if we look at the data that comes in, we have included in the relationships for our idea, we have two data items, quote 2 and quote 3. So then down here in the included data, we have quote 2 and quote 3. We have sources and authors. So that's all good. Okay, cool. So that data is all loading and we're good. So now I want to experiment with other screens. So like going from here, I want to be able to kind of click to get access to some of these other things. Like I think I'd like to see this refactoring. I kind of like to see screens for all of them. But I know for sure that I'm going to want a screen for sources. So let's set up sources, and we'll set those up as links to these different sources. So we're going to go into the router. We want to create a route. In fact, I'll use the generator. Ember G route sources. let this load. I'm going to check on that virus scan to make sure it's not being overly zealous. Okay, so we've got a sources route there, so that's good. We've got a sources route file as well. So now we're going to kind of put in a model hook here to load the model for the sources. So when we're on the sources page, what's the data that's needed? We don't have an ID here because this is just going to be the list of all the sources. So we're going to find record source. And so there's no ID. And do I need to include anything on this screen? I guess I want to have the author. That would be good. So I'm going to include the author. See what Prettier does with that. It keeps it on one line. That's nice. And so now let's look at the sources list. Do I need a back button? Let's do a back button for now, and then we'll look into the navigation some other time, because that's not, I mean, I can put navigation in place. I'm trying to get these screens built out to see if it's actually interesting or useful to me. So we got a paper card. I guess I'm going to loop through these cards. This is not the screen I really want to model after. I want to model it after indexes here. So for each model as source, and let's create a source card component. Source is source. So we'll do Ember G component source. Source card. We'll generate that, and then we're going to take a look at it. So we've got idea card here. We'll just copy this over, and the source card is here. And of course, in a big application, we might kind of refactor out some of this duplication, but we don't need to deal with that yet. We're just using very simple Ember paper components. We just want to display something reasonable looking. So in the card, we have a title. The source is the title of the source. And then in some kind of secondary text, we want to display the author. So let's find out a way to show some secondary text. Picking something from a list from the Ember paper documents is much more appealing to me than having to style this from scratch. There's I call that large. Oh, no, that's the name of the card. But then this extra large text here is black, so that's nice. Text subhead. Perfect. Text subhead. And again, notice the curlies has double curly pound text.subhead to use a component. We're using angle brackets. There's no pound in front, and angle brackets by default, start with a capital letter. So we name the variable text, and we do text.subhead. So source.author.name. So we got that. Let's remove the actions for the moment. And this should display the card. So now let's see in the app if we can go to sources. Something has gone wrong. What has gone wrong? Find record. Okay, I've used find. Find record is not correct. We're just checking cheat sheet here. I think it's find all. Yep. Find all sources. Now we reload the page. Now our two sources show up with the title and then the author. So that's really great. So now we can add the action, and the action can take us to a source detail page that I think I'd like to show all the quotes that came from that source as well. So let's add that link into the card component. So the idea card has a button that says go to idea detail. Source card is going to have a button that says go to source detail. And now on the component itself, we're going to copy this. Let's just put this here. So remembered, we injected the service router so that the component has access to the router to be able to make routing changes. And then we have this action decorator, and that's going to allow us to specify something as an action that can be called from our component. Go to source detail, and when we click on that, we want to do this.router.transition to sources. Oh, is that right? Sources/show. I think we want to put the name of the route here, not the URL of the route. So I want some kind of route called sources. Well, let's call it sources detail, just to match with the names we've been using here. And we're going to pass this dot source. Now we need that route. Sources detail. We're going to go into the router. Just going to add it into here. Just a moment once my antivirus decides that's okay. And so we see here that it's actually added a nested function for us to have detail underneath it, and we just need to customize the path of it. So the path should not be /detail. We want the path to be /id. Yeah, good. Okay, cool. And now we're going to need, so we have that route, and so we can now load data in it. We see here under routes, there's the sources route and then the sources detail route. So that's in there. Let's copy the model hook over, and we want to load the source for the individual source. So we're going to find a record source with the ID that was passed in. So what do we want to load with the source? We want to load the author, and we want to load the quotes. And do we want to load the ideas? I don't know yet if we want to load the ideas. So let's just get the author and the quotes, and we'll see and go from there. We're just going to experiment here. So we're getting the author and the quotes, and then now on the router, the sources detail template, we can output this. So let's output the equivalent of this list. This is the idea detail. We can maybe reorganize those paths to be more consistent, but that's okay because we're just experimenting. And you're going to hear me say that a lot of times, apparently. So we have this back button. I think it's going to take us back to the root of the application, so that's not ideal. We'll come back to that. But in the title, we're on a source, so the model refers to the source that we have, and the source is going to have a title. I think let's close out some of these other screens. Looking at the source card, I think I like the author name as the subhead. So that's going to be parallel, but then down below we're going to have a list of items. And the model is going to have sources. No, the model is going to have quotes. Actually, yeah, that's great. That's interesting. That's very parallel. Just like the idea has a list of quotes, a source also has a list of quotes. But for these quotes, we don't need to list the author name and title under them because we're on the source page instead. So let's just have the quote text itself. And let's see if this works. All right, so we got practical object-oriented design in Ruby with a details button. And that doesn't work, so let's see why. The route sources /detail was not found. Sources /detail? That's interesting. Let me reload just to make sure nothing's gone wrong. Let me try to go to sources /1. No, that doesn't look right. So I've set up something wrong here. Sources /detail is found. Let's check the Ember tools. Yeah, check this out. So sources.detail should go to sources /id. That doesn't quite seem right. Oh, it says sources detail. And yet it's not displaying what I would expect. Data. It's loaded 2 sources. Probably I haven't changed the method name correctly. So sources detail, find record, source. So let's do a log statement here to see if this is what we're hitting. And we should be with console log, detail route. And we'll output the ID as well. We'll just see. Sources detail route with ID 1. So let's see what network requests are being made. You're going to get to sources. Oh, I think that's because of the parent route, because of the way nesting works in Ember. So let's fix that. Really, the idea is in Ember, when we have these nested routes, so notice there's a sources index here that was also created. So when you are on /sources, that's considered the sources index route, and then the sources detail is parallel. So because sources is in the chain above me, that data is being queried now as well, even though I don't necessarily need it. This allows you to do some cool stuff with like a master detail view screens, but we're not doing that right now. So let's generate a route, sources index, and we're going to move sources stuff onto the sources index so that it's not loaded even when we're on the details screen. And that may not fix our problem, but that'll at least help. All right, so now we have sources, and then sources detail and sources index. So let's just go sources route. Let's move the model over here. And so now we want the template as well. The sources list, we just want to display outlet to render the child. And then here in the index, we want the list of source cards. Oh yeah, of course, that's what it was. The sources parent route was never rendering out the child routes because outlet was not in there. Once I've added outlet in there, now it's going to render either the index or the detail. So I think that will actually fix it. So if we go to sources, we get the list of the two sources. When we go to this one, now the linking is still not working, but if we go to the URL directly, we get the name of the source. We don't get the author name, so I've done something wrong there. But then we do get the quote. Cool. Okay, so let's find out what's going on in the template there. Sources detail. Oh, at source.authorname. So that now changes because it's available as a model here. Okay, we got the source title, we got the author name, and we've got a quote. Now just to go back, sources, let's take a look at refactoring. And again, we got, the navigation's not working. But if I go to it, then I have two different quotes that appear here under refactoring. So that's good. I mean, again, the visuals are not great. I want to get those separated out, but that's at least something. That's getting us started. So let's figure out what's up with that navigation. Click from sources list. Clicking details does not work. And it says the route sources / detail was not found. I think in there I maybe am supposed to use a dot instead of a slash. So let's try that out. Sources.detail. Because I think the slashes refers to the literal URL, which we've customized here, but the dot is like the nested names. Okay, yeah, so now I can go there, and I can go there, and we're good. So let's do another commit. This is good progress. I think I actually did a couple different things, so let's try to fix that. And we have skimmed over the time where I got something wrong with the sources, so that's good. So let's just kind of commit some changes here. Sources in detail. Nope. Nope. We did add more stuff to the ideas, that's right. So to the ideas, we add the quotes. So we'll commit the quotes being added there separately. Add list of quotes to idea detail page. Oh, and then we got some tests here we don't want, so I'll delete those out. Don't need this component test yet. Don't need these route tests in particular. Apparently I kept that route in, but that test is not needed. So let's just do this commit of this route test we're removing as a separate thing. Remove unused route test. Our end-to-end test will cover that once we actually need to do it. Okay. Let's look at everything that's needed. We have a source card, the router, and then the routes for sources, detail, and index. I think the sources route can maybe actually go away. So let's do that if we can avoid it. Because if nothing's happening in that class, I think we don't need it. Yeah, so sources, and let's look at this in the Ember Inspector to follow it. You'd think, I mean, just then I had the strange thought, like, hey, I'm on sources. Like, my data, how's my data being loaded? But we can see here in the route tree that here we're under application sources, sources.index. So that's at /sources, and the sources index route is what's loading the data here. Because that data is not needed on a sources /1 type route. All right, so that's not needed. That's cool. See if anything else is not needed. Maybe the template is not needed. Let's try that. Yep, that is also not needed. So if the template was just delegating through, then that's fine. That was not needed either, and that's nice. That removes some non-essential stuff. So we got the source card component. We got the source detail where I'm finding stuff, the source list where I'm finding stuff, source card, the source detail design, and then the sources list. Cool, okay. Add sources list and detail. So the next question I have is on here. So we're on a source and we have a quote that's being shown. One note that I wanted to say is, like, as of today, I don't want to add in any adding or editing of records because I'm trying to get a feel for how the whole application is going to lay out. I know how I'm going to be able to add a record. Like, I click a button, it's an editable field, it's nice and simple. So I don't need that for learning purposes. What I need is to see how the whole app flows together. So say we're on this source page, Practical Object-Oriented Design in Ruby, and we have this quote. Do I want to see what idea it relates to? I'm not sure, so let's give it a try. Let's add that content into there and we'll see if we like it. So what we'll do is, in our route for loading of the data, we'll go to the index. It's the source detail. We have author and then quotes, and we want quotes dot idea. So each of the multiple quotes has one idea. So I think that's going to load it just fine. And then on the source detail screen here, we're going to do that H4, and then we're going to do quote.idea.summary. We'll see if that loads up. Yeah, there we go. So there's our quote summary. If we go into refactoring, that again is not acting quite right, so let's reload the page. We'll maybe check that out real quick after this. Oh, this is the ideas thing. So yeah, sources 2. And then we have both of these quotes relating to this idea. So already this gives me an interesting thought. Within a source, do I want to group different quotes based on the ideas they relate to if there's more than one of them? So that's something interesting we can experiment with. But it's easy to do it because we move these components around. I'm going to leave it as it is for right now because I think there's more interesting things to do. I'm going to have this be another commit. So check out what this change entailed. To pull in data from a different record, from a different relationship data table, all we had to do was add it into the list of included records that we were querying down and then output it. And Ember Data handled the rest. So that's pretty nice. Add ideas to source list page. Okay, so there's going to be a little bit of experimentation I need to do here, but I am feeling self-conscious. Maybe I wouldn't bother with this when I was just doing, really just experimenting on the side. But maybe I would, because it kind of bugs me, and I want to have assurance that Ember is going to load data in a good way, and it also kind of just helps me visualize the data that's coming down all at once. So that one-to-many thing that happened, and how did it happen? Let's see this in action. So we're on this ideas page. And from here, let's clear out the network list. If we click on details here, we get multiple things that happen. In fact, actually, I was kind of surprised. I forgot what I was doing. So does this put this in different orders? This is what I expected. The reason software design is necessary is because change is inevitable. I think I will click on the refactoring one, so let's do that. Refactoring in small steps allows you to make changes gradually. So I clear out my network console, click details, and then check out what we've done. We've loaded the quotes for idea 2, and we got back 2 quotes and response with no included data. Then we loaded a source for quote 2 and a source for quote 3, and then the author for source 2, which is actually the same author used in both cases. So we have multiple requests coming in for this page, including 2 requests for sources when we have 2 sources. So that's an n+1 query. The more records we have on the page, the more HTTP requests are going out, so that's going to be a problem. Now let's see what happens when we reload the page. When we reload the page, just one nice query happens. And this is because not because, but the one nice query is we go to ideas 2, and then we're including all these other things. And so you might wonder, why is Ember doing this? We asked it to include all all the data we wanted as a part of this model hook. This is the ideas page, the ideas route, and we're finding the idea and then including all of these. So let me put a console log statement here to show this. Ideas route.model. So when we reload the page, we look at the console and ideas route.model is hit. But if we go here to the front page of the app, and then we click into here, that model hook is not hit. And the reason why is because of a shortcut that Ember is trying to take that is often useful, but in this case is a little bit hurtful, you could say. So let me show you what's happening. And I just realized a simple way that we can fix it for now until a more robust application in the future. So on our idea card, we're calling transition to going to the ideas route. And we pass this dot idea. So this dot idea is a real Ember Data record. Like this is the record that's been pulled down. And so what Ember will do is say, oh, you're passing this. You're saying this is the model that goes with this route. And so therefore it won't run the model hook because it's going to assume it's already got the data that it needs. So there's an alternative. So if you're only displaying that one record, then that's fine. But if you need to display related records as well, then it's a problem. So if we were only displaying the idea, then we wouldn't need to make any requests to the server at all. So that'd be really nice. But because we have this nested data we're going to need that wasn't available on the list page, we need to do the query. So even though the idea itself is already downloaded, we need all the related data as well. So we still want one query that's going to pull in all the details. So the way we can do this is by, instead of passing a full record to the transition to, just passing the ID, the numeric ID. So this means that this new ideas route is not going to have access to the idea record, or it's not going to have it passed to it, and so it's going to hit the model hook again. So let's save this and let's try it. We reload the page, and then ideas route model is hit as we expect, and that is hit, and all the related data is downloaded. Now if we go back, let's reload and try again. Now we're on the main page. We click details, and we get two requests, so let's check into that. We get one request to ideas 2 with quotes, quotes.source, quotes.source.author. So that should be most of our data. We got our 2 quotes. We got our quote and our other quote and our source and our author. So then what is this other request? I'm actually surprised that came down. This is better, but this is surprising to me. Ideas to quotes. Interesting. So why would that happen if we're already asking for the ideas to included quotes and then they happen here as well? That's surprising to me. I might need to look into that offline because that shouldn't be happening. I don't think. Let's try it again to see if it happens every time. I mean, it's best if it doesn't happen ever, but let's just see one more time. Yeah, it's happening again. So I'm not sure. We're going to have to look at that. Let me just browse through the code real quick and see if anything obviously comes to mind. So there is no source top route. We have the source detail here. We're just doing... yeah. No, I'm looking at ideas here instead of sources. So the ideas route, ideas route.model, it's being queried, find record idea, so that's fine. And then templates ideas. So yeah, model.quotes. Those are the quotes that were eagerly fetched. So I'm surprised that's attempting to asynchronously load it. So this is a nicety that Ember gives you, that in the template you can access a relationship, and if it hasn't been downloaded, it'll just download it for you. But that can have performance problems. And we can see here that it's making a query that it seems like we don't want. If we're not properly downloading it at the start here, we want to download it correctly. So let's figure out how to do that. I've heard of a way in Ember to turn off these async relationships, and it seems here that would be good to do. So let's Google how to do that. I think there's a parameter we pass to it. Async true versus async false. That sounds right. All right, so in our has many relationship, we can say async true or async false. And this is using the older non-decorator, non-ES6 class syntax, but let's give it a try. In fact, we can look at Ember Decorators documentation to figure it out. Ember Decorators data. Attribute. Okay, so the type in there is optional and the options is optional. Oh, and there's the async false. So this is a case here where the name of the model is different from the name of the relationship, so we don't have that going on, so that's fine. So let's try just with this one model to fix it. Has many quotes async false. So we don't need Google Chrome. All right, we're on our home page here. We click into the detail. Okay, so our data is all there, and it didn't try to load the data asynchronously. So that's better. Like, that's definitely good. Let's go ahead. I've heard folks, like the folks over at Ember Map, recommend in particular not having async relationships on. So let's just kind of go through and turn them all off and see if that helps, or see if it hurts, see if it breaks anything. And I'd much rather know if an async relationship is being run, so I can choose if I want to opt into that, or if I want to eagerly fetch it instead. And I think belongs to's can have async false as well, so let's just put that in because that'll just be safer all around. And let's just try all the screens in our app and make sure they load up okay. Our main screen is okay. Main screen turn on. We go here. I don't think this is not a duplication here. This is a cross-domain request. So, oh, this is interesting. So here, I do not see the authors. All right, if I reload the page, do I see the authors? No. Okay, so that's interesting. So maybe that, let's turn off the quote. Let's turn off the source async false, and we'll see what happens here. And let's turn off the author async false. Interesting. Have I forgotten about the detail? Let's just undo all the async falses and let's see. Now that we've seen this happening, let's just kind of look at the behavior of our application apart from that. Yeah, so now it's coming in, and it's coming in although it's not sending out any additional requests. So let's see which thing specifically breaks it. We'll put, I don't need to resize the window that way. Let's make sure this is all on the screen. Let's try this. Okay, so we have the ideas, the quotes. See if the quotes are async false, if that causes the problem. No, with quotes being async false, we're still fine. And what if we go like this? Yeah, we're still fine there. Okay, so let's try, from quotes, let's try source async false. And maybe this is just going too far and we shouldn't worry about it because if the app is working, but I'd like to kind of, even though we're in the experimentation phase, I'd like to understand a bit more of what's going on. Is this, I'm forgetting. Okay, so that comes up just fine. Belongs to source. So now the source belongs to author. Had a little syntax error there, so Ember is taking just a second to rerun it. So that's all there. Huh. Okay. So that whole direction is unidirectional. What if we say sources? Oh, so this is interesting. Okay, so we haven't updated this screen. I think this is the thing. Let's see. Reload sources 1, so that's including things. But if I go from the sources list to the source detail, it's querying other endpoints there, and I think that's because we're not passing the ID there as well. So let's pass the ID, this source.id. We'll go into refactoring, and now it's pulled in. But now see it again, it has that kind of separate request to quotes. It might be something timing related. I'm not totally sure. But so let's go here. Let's put in that async false. The page itself is fine. If we reload on the sources page, it's fine. If we go to refactoring, the data looks good. And from the initial page, we go to details. But now that has now caused a problem. So if that has many goes away, yeah, so that has many there, has many quotes, is causing a problem with the async false. I wonder why that is. So that's not something I've run across before, so I'll need to look into that some more. But for now, let's just try this. Let's commit these changes. We'll say here, pass route by IDs to force load of record with included data. Pull it down. And then we're going to set some relationships to async false to prevent extra loads. I'm going to remove that comment, and I think there's another comment as well. Here we go. Remove this comment as well. Cool. So that was a little bit of exploration to learn a bit more about how Ember Data goes and how it's querying the data. So, there's complexity here. I mean, just like if you're using a server-rendered application, getting your SQL queries to work just right has some complexity as well. But the benefit we get is the guarantees of relational data to make sure we don't lose data, that things change atomically, and we get the nice responsiveness of our front-end Ember application. So we've got a couple of different screens now, and this is starting to look interesting. I think we're at the point where I can start to visualize what's going on. I see on my list of ideas, like, hey, where does this idea come from? And I can click to there. Or I have my list of sources, and I say, okay, I'm navigating through this book. I want to take notes on it. So I think what I want to do next time is first I'm going to add some navigation so I can get between these two different views. And then I think I'm going to start adding some data. I'm going to work around with how to add, take notes as we go. And maybe that involves adding a new record at the top level and stuff like that. But mostly, this supplemental stuff, the secondary stuff, like adding a new author that should be pretty rare, I'm not even necessarily worried about experimenting with that yet. I want to experiment with the main use cases, which is taking notes and browsing the ideas that have come out of them. So we're going to work on that one next time. Maybe I'll play around with the look and feel a bit in the meantime to get this looking a little bit better, a little bit less like just plain text, a bit more material designy. And that'll be good for next time. But I'll push this PR up. You can feel free to check it out. It'll be in the show notes, as you can see. Once again, check out Embercast if you want to kind of go in deeper with Ember and Rails. Stream EmberConf. I think they're going to be streaming EmberConf. Let's see if they have any information listed on that right now. Check out their website at emberconf.com. And probably there will be information about them streaming Monday the 18th through Wednesday the 20th. If you want to check it out, I'll certainly be listening as much as possible. So hey, thanks for joining in. Thanks for following along with our Ember and Rails experiments. And next time we're going to kind of take things even further and move our experimentations ahead. I'm coding it wrong. Catch me on Twitter. Catch me on Ember Discord as Josh Justice. And we'll see you next time. Thanks. Let's go to the slide. See ya.